Hello, my name is Gravy.
And I'm Noah with the Paranormal Investigators of Milwaukee.
And this is Paranormal Review.
Today on Paranormal Review, we're going to talk about Ashmore Estates. And we first want to talk a little bit about the actual history of the location. So it started out in 1870 as the Coles County Poor Farm, which was a building that was used to house those who really couldn't afford to take care of themselves. They actually used it as a working farm, and they were responsible for doing work to kind of earn their keep in the building. In 1911, the government had to condemn it though, because it was in very poor shape. And in 1916, they built a new property that was made out of stone. And part of that building is actually what is still existing today as Ashmore Estates. It was used in that practice until 1959, when it was sold and converted to a private psychiatric hospital. It worked in that capacity until 1986, when it was closed down due to financial issues. It stayed vacant for a number of years until 1998, when someone purchased it and wanted to renovate it and turn it into their private property. However, that didn't really work out, and it changed hands a number of times over the preceding years. In 2006, a gentleman by the name of Scott Kelly purchased it, was looking to turn it into a haunted attraction. In 2013, it was hit by a tornado, and it tore off the attic, the roof, and both of the gables. It limped along as a property that was used for people to come in and do investigations at until Robin Terry purchased it, and he put a ton of money into it, cleaned it up. We actually went and investigated that before he purchased it, and it was in terrible shape. We came back afterwards, was in much better shape. It's been cleaned up, electricity's been added back to it, we have water working at it now too, so.
And he himself is an investigator, so he knows what to do to get it ready for investigations for other teams coming in.
Correct.
Which is one of the reasons why we wanted to go there. There's also some great claims there, and we wanted to go check them out for ourselves. Some of the claims at Ashmore Estate are very amazing. In October of 2009, there was a meteorologist that was doing a news scene on the third floor near the nurse's station. He was seated there, and he woke up later on the floor with a broken collarbone and wasn't sure how that had happened and how he ended up on the floor.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the claims that we were interested in looking into, because when it comes to physical manipulation, that's not something that happens very often.
There's footsteps being heard.
Oh yeah, that's a common thing that we get.
There are also disembodied voices that are heard.
Those are always great to try and test, because you're looking at the environment, trying to figure out, is it coming from outside, is it coming from inside?
Also, shadows being seen moving throughout the hallways.
Another common thing we get a lot of times, but also a lot of fun to try to test.
And one thing that happened to us on our last investigation, there was an air current one of our investigators was feeling, and it turned out to be bats. A little disappointing in the actual natural explanation, but still very cool.
We always have to consider the wildlife at the locations we go to.
There's even up on the third floor a bell that you could hear being dinged every once in a while. Last time we were there, we thought we had that same experience. We heard a bell ding, but when we went back to see if we can replicate it, when you're on the first floor and someone rings it on the third floor, you can't actually hear it.
Some of the other claims, on the more famous ones, if you will, when we first heard about Ashmore Estates, were regarding a little girl who passed away in a fire. Her name was Elvis Skinner, and she passed away in the 1880s. Her nightgown actually caught on fire, and unfortunately, she essentially burned to death. This happened when it was the Coles County Poor Farm, so not the building that Ashmore is currently, but on the property where Ashmore was built. You hear about this often. When you look up Ashmore Estates online, you're gonna find these claims, but it's important to know, how much is actually based in real history and how much is just, kind of wishful thinking when it comes to what's gonna actually occur when you're doing an investigation there. One of the main things we look for when we're doing an investigation is the actual condition of the building. It can really make or break an investigation in regards to the sorts of hazards we have to look out for and challenges we have when we're doing that investigation. When it comes to Ashmore Estates, it's one of the better buildings that we have ever investigated. Ever since Robin took over the location, he has really done a lot to replace windows, replace doors, fix the leaking roof that was had after the tornado that occurred. Also spending a lot of money to be able to bring plumbing and electrical back to the building so that we would be able to have a break room, have a climate controlled area. And I can't stress how important that base camp being climate controlled is. If you're not someone who's done a lot of these types of investigations, when it's the dead of winter or the middle of the summer, it can get very cold or very warm at some of these locations. And if you do not have a place to go back to that you can kind of recover, get warmed up or cooled down, it can be really difficult to investigate any of those locations for any sort of time. So the fact that Ashmore has not one but two between the actual base camp and then the bunkhouses that are both climate controlled is really, really key. Now, one of the main things that we look for is infestations. So we're talking about old abandoned buildings. You're looking for things like rats or mice, bats, and if there's a lot of insects. Cockroaches are one of the main ones we look for because they will all come out once the lights go off. And so in this location, the really only thing that I complain about are flies. So I think this really just has something to do with the fact that people are going in and out of the building, flies get in, and because Robin has done such a wonderful job of sealing the building, they don't have a good way of getting out. Now, another negative to that is flies attract other things such as bats. And we do have firsthand experience with bats on the third floor. There does seem to be infestation. I know Robin is actively trying to get the bats out. They don't have access to the main building, but I believe it is an ongoing battle. But compared to other locations we've investigated, very minimal in regards to that sort of thing. And if you're there in the fall or in the spring, the flies are going to be less of an issue because they're just not as active in that time. If you're there during the height of summer, expect that you're going to have all sorts of insects. And we will spend some time going through and with a fly swatter and just trying to kill as many of them as we can ahead of time.
You just can't get all of them. Plus, they make little sounds when they start hitting the windows, and they make little tap noises. So
it's perfect for investigation.
Right. Yeah.
Tap, if you hear this make a noise like tap, you hear tap, 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 and so.
And there was another issue this past time we were there. There were birds on the third floor living like kind of in the walls of the building itself. So something to keep in mind when you hear the chirping, and they're pretty much right behind you in the wall.
But overall, I mean, the condition of the building, raining or snowing, doesn't matter. Like, it's pretty watertight. You don't have that sort of problem. And all the windows and doors are secure, so you don't have an issue. Another concern is security. Can people from the outside gain access to the inside when you're there doing investigations? Our equipment isn't cheap. And so we want to make sure that when we leave to go to dinner, if we're going to go do that, that we can come back and not worry that all our stuff's going to be gone.
And the ease of investigating it is very nice too, because Terry did put a lot of time in making this very investigation friendly. It is a big location, so going from base camp to the third floor, second floor can be difficult. But there's electricity that he's gotten to most of the floors, which is nice for plugging in your equipment. And then it's just how in shape are you from walking up and down stairs all night long?
Stairs is a big thing. I mean, not everyone is able to do a lot of stairs, so it is something to take note. There's not an elevator in the building. You will have to go up several flights in order to be able to access all the different areas in Ashmore Estates. One thing that was a little bit annoying to me was there are motion lights in the stairways, and there are signs that say you cannot unplug those motion lights. It's a safety thing. It's just a pain because when you're moving from a dark floor and then you have to go upstairs or downstairs to a different floor, you lose all your night vision. And plus that light then can bleed through when you're moving in and out of the doors, and so you have to make note of that when you're having cameras pointing in that direction. But again, overall minor and compared to some of the other things we deal with.
And for this location, we recommend about 6 to 8 people. That's perfect for the size of the building. Maybe not many more than that.
When you're talking about the condition of Ashmore Estates, you have to remember the tornado that hit the building back in 2013. Before, there was actually another level to Ashmore Estates, the attic they called it, that you had access to. When the tornado came through, it basically ripped off the roof, and there was a little bit of the gables that were left that were eventually taken down because they were not structurally sound. When this happened, this caused basically an ongoing water problem in the building because the roof was not ever really properly sealed again until Robin took ownership of the building. That was a big concern for us moving in, that it was actually going to be watertight, so that if it was raining, or even if it wasn't raining, you had puddles of water that you'd have to look for, or constantly the sound of dripping water, which is obviously it's a very large issue when you're doing investigation relying on audio. Luckily, in this situation, Robin did everything right. He was able to seal the roof properly and really eliminate any water intrusion that might happen from outside as a result of that tornado.
Another concern that we look into before we investigate a location is contamination. The building itself is set back from the road pretty far back, so you don't have to worry too much about traffic, and it's already a non-busy road. So the seldom cars that did drive by, you could hear enough where you can tag it. But another issue was headlights. Headlights could be seen through the windows that were uncovered.
Yeah, this happened most of the time when cars were moving from the main county road, when they're turning onto the road that actually went in front of Ashmore. The road that is in front of Ashmore is very, very sparsely traveled, but the highway kind of runs at an angle from the building in the background, and so that's where the kind of noise can come from. But when they're turning from that highway onto that road, that's when the headlights shine right at the building.
Yeah, and behind the building, it was just cornfields as far as the eye could see, so you didn't have to worry about anything there. And we did have an instance, the last investigation we had, where we were sitting on the third floor and we kept seeing this shadow figure type movement in one of the bedrooms. And it actually turned out to be, when cars passed by, it would project a headlight kind of movement and it would play a trick of the eye and we'd think something was moving in the room. And that's what it turned out to be.
Yeah, it was actually kind of reflecting between the panes of glass on the windows that were in there. There was multiple windows in that room at the time. And unfortunately, there's not an actual covering on all of the windows in Ashmore Estates. So outside influences as far as light coming in is something you do have to be aware of.
And as for other contaminations, people coming to the location, Robin did warn us that some people would show up to take pictures of the location because it is a very popular hotspot for people because they see them on the TV shows.
Right.
But we had not run into that situation at all. And there are cats actually on the location too. We had to run in with a cat, but knowing that it's there is important so that way you can tag it when you hear something that does sound like a cat or even a woman screaming from really far away.
Right.
So Ashmore Accommodations, because Terry is an investigator himself, he's probably been to a lot of locations and knows what investigators would like. He's got everything you need. He's got a coffee maker, microwave, refrigerator, the working bathrooms, which is very important.
Key.
Base camp is heated and cooled, depending on the time of year you go, something to think about. And then the best part is he has those bunkhouses.
Right.
He has, 3 or 4 bunkhouses outside, which you can rent. We'll get into that in more detail. But you can stay there, so you don't have to go into town and stay at an expensive hotel. You have these nice bunkhouses, and they come with TVs, so you can review evidence right then and there.
Another really nice thing that they have there at Ashmore Estates is the system for the DVR. So a DVR system is a system used, you've probably seen on TV, where they hook up a lot of different cameras via cabling to a central recording system. So DVR stands for Digital Video Recorder. And so we in PIM do not use a DVR system, we use individual cameras. However, a lot of teams do use them. So Robin, as investigator, had wired up cameras throughout the entire building. And if you want, you just can bring your DVR system there and hook up to those cameras. Another benefit to that, though, is that since those cameras are always on, the infrared lights that are part of those cameras help illuminate the environment. So you, even for using your own cameras or separate cameras, you can utilize that infrared light to be able to help see in those long hallways and dark, big rooms that they have at Ashmore Estates. The other great thing is the fact that when that electrical was added into the building, there's now working outlets on every floor, which before, I think there was like maybe 1 outlet or 2 outlets that was actually operational, but now, since there's ones all over the place, it's a lot easier if I want to place a camera here or there and be able to plug in your infrared lights and be able to see.
And nearby, amenities. It's in Ashmore, which isn't a big town in itself. There's not a lot there, but about 15 minutes away, there's Charleston, and they do have food, places to stay, it's all that sort of stuff. But we'd recommend eat before you show up or bring your own food. You can cook. There's, again, a microwave. There's even a grill there. I think you can grill outside if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Plenty of stuff for you to do before you get there if you have to.
Yeah, and that's definitely recommended, of course, because at least for us, we want to investigate as much as possible and not spend a lot of time running back and forth to town. So if you come prepared, there's enough amenities there at the location that you can pretty much make do. Now to talk about what everyone wants to know about. How much does it cost? And how long do you get to investigate for?
And this is all the research that you do.
Right, this is something that I take on when I'm looking at locations. We decide we do a location. I look into all of its pricing, how long we get to investigate for, and that's kind of how we make our decision, because it's really important, right? Like paying $1,000 to investigate for 2 hours is a lot different than paying $1,000 to investigate for 10 hours. So this is something that we often will look into. When it comes to Ashmore Estates, luckily, it's not that bad. It is a $500 to investigate for 12 people, up to 12 people, for 12 hours. Now, if you pay an additional $50, you can have access to the bunkhouse. It's 50 or 100. There are 2 different sizes. There are 2 small bunkhouses and 1 large bunkhouse. So if you want to do the 2 small ones, they're $50 a piece. The large one is $100 additional if you want to do that. The 2 small bunkhouses sleep 4 people each. Well, essentially there's 4 beds there. You could probably cram more than 4 people in there if you wanted to. And the large bunkhouse can sleep up to 8. So when we're doing our looking into that, we obviously looked into doing the bunkhouses because we needed a place to stay. This is about 6.5 hours away from the Milwaukee area where we're based out of. And so we wanted to make sure we had a place that we could stay. When you're going to do, looking in like, okay, we definitely want to do an investigation here. What do we have to do? So you contact Robin via email and you let him know what date you're looking at doing, and he will tell you if it's available or not. If it is available, then you have to put down a $200 non-refundable deposit to hold that date. And the rest of the money is due essentially the week before you come. And you have to provide that usually via PayPal is how we've done our payment for Ashmore Estates in the past. And other than that, it's pretty straightforward. 12 people is the upper limit that they put on it. We like to have fewer than that just so we can limit our noise contamination, but you can do what you think you want to do.
If you're looking to do a weekend investigation at Ashmore, plan about 6 to 9 months in advance to book the date that you want.
Right.
He opens the calendar at the first of the year, so you can contact Robin directly through Facebook or email, and he's very responsive to emails.
Yeah, to determine to make sure your date's going to be available, especially if you are limited on what date you can. When we do ours, we will often contact all the locations you want to do because we tend to do these in a row and make sure that all of them will have availability for what we want. But if you're just going to do Ashmore, then you can just focus on that. Would we investigate Ashmore Estates again?
Well, most definitely, since we've already been there, 2 times for me and 3 for you?
3 for me. Ashmore Estates is a wonderful location to investigate because of all the things we've already talked about. It's a large location. It is well controlled as far as audio, as well as climate. It has security that we don't have to worry about people coming in or bugs or animals coming into the location, weather. It is definitely a location that you have a good place to stay. If you don't want to rent a hotel room, you can rent the bunkhouse out, which is an amenity that many locations do not have. It also is a location that is set up for investigators. Robin is an investigator himself, the owner, and is something that he has taken into account when he has done the updates to the building with the DVR system, the infrared lights, the electrical throughout, the fact that there's bathrooms on site. And it's not too terribly far away from us. Now it's about 6.5 hours, which is not a small drive. Definitely want to stay overnight when you're doing that sort of thing. So, if you're in that sort of range, it's definitely something that would be worth, willing to go back and do.
And most importantly, the cost and the amount of time that you get there is ideal.
Right, so for essentially $600 or $550, depending if you're going to be renting a small bunkhouse or a big bunkhouse, you can investigate for about 15 hours straight if you want to. And Robin also has been flexible on that arrival time. So we actually wanted to come a little bit earlier and he was willing to let us do that.
Well, that sums up our review for Ashmore Estate.
Thank you so much for watching. If there's anything we didn't cover in this review that you'd like to know, please make sure to put it down in the comments below. We'd be happy to answer those. We also have a lot more information about this location and many others on our website at paranormalmilwaukee.com.
And don't forget to subscribe and click on that notification bell for more of our videos that we're going to be posting shortly.
Definitely. This is something that you found useful or informative. If you know anyone who might be coming to this location or any friends who are just interested in the paranormal, it would really help us out if you could share this to even one person to help us get our channel out there.
I'm Gravy.
And I'm Noah with the Paranormal Investigators of Milwaukee.
And this has been another Paranormal Review.